Hi, Bob Ford and Phil Sheridan back here in the Inquirer newsroom, riffing with the writers one more time. We're getting up towards that preparing for the draft season in the NFL, that free agent season in the NFL. Andy Reid and his staff is going to be going down to the Senior Bowl in a couple weeks to look at very tall men and decide if any of them should be able to play for the Philadelphia Eagles. We have our own list of the guys whose slots they should fill, guys who we don't want to see around anymore. Phil, who's on your list?
Well, the obvious guys are people like Javon Curse, who makes a lot of money and is a huge salary cap hit and has not been very productive for them. But I think there are guys like Greg Lewis and Carell Buckhalter who are the real indicators of whether the team is getting better or not. You take a guy like Lewis, he makes the team every year because he knows the offense and because he's a special teams guy. Carell Buckhalter is a fine player, but they don't seem to trust him enough to use him in the running game enough to actually take some of the workload off Brian Westbrook. They don't trust him to pick up the blitz or whatever the problems are. So if those guys make your team every year, to me, you're not getting any better. Not that there's anything wrong with, nothing personal against those guys, but you're not improving if they're on your team every single year.
I agree with those. I like Buckhalter perhaps a little bit more than you do, but I've got some names too. Thomas DePay, if he's back, then you haven't improved that position. What does he do for you? Why is he taking up a roster spot? Even when I look at a guy like Sean Considine, who is one of your starters, the safety position, he goes out with an injury and it's almost seamless. They just pop somebody in and they're just as good, maybe better. So that tells me that he might not have been as good as they thought he was, when they put him back there.
Now, to me, that also brings up Will James, who was a third cornerback. They really liked him a lot coming out of training camp. And my theory on that is they really love their receivers. They think Reggie Brown and Kevin Curtis are A1 starting receivers. So Will James is covering them in training camp and he looks great. Well, turns out the receivers aren't all that good, and Will James gets totally exposed when he has to cover other receivers. So I think you get very comfortable with your people, and it's easy to just keep those guys around year after year because you've already brought them in and taught them your system. And that's not how you improve in the NFL. You got to be uncomfortable sometimes with the guys that are out there.
Exactly. All right, Andy. Well, that's kind of our list, and we're going to send you the link so you have the little thumbnails of who to get rid of, who to stick with, and I think that'll help one.
I'm sure Andy will lean heavily on our suggestions.
I don't want Andy leaning heavily on me for anything.